Michael Joyce. I'm going to talk about some of the visual explorations I do with analog pen and paper code to keep myself sane. I started my career as a graphic designer, an in-house graphic designer, and sometime in the early 2000s, I don't remember, I had an opportunity to do a product collaboration and design carpet for hospitality and healthcare. First, the wide broad room that goes down hallways, and then squares that you tile. And that was kind of my first eye-opening to patterns are a thing. And I started noticing them in the world. You know, you look at wallpaper and you figure out what the repeat is. And then I was at a neighbor's house, and they had this hand-woven wool rug from the Middle East. And there was this motif on the edge that was crosses, but it was positive, negative. It was the same shape. And that just clicked in my brain that there are these things where positive and negative are equal. And I just started exploring those more and more. Fast forward a few years, our company had the Cha-Cha. The theme was design in your personal life. So I presented this obsession I had with Doodles, and I had a good time with it. At the end, I overheard the CEO say, "Yeah, those were all pretty good, except for that one guy about the Doodles." And he was an engineer and a CEO, so I took that as a badge of honor. And my revenge was 2-3 years later, I won the highest award in the company for productivity and performance. And in my last 6 years at that company, clients paid me and my team to basically doodle in front of them to facilitate design thinking workshops. So don't let negative energy kill your creativity. Fast forward now, I'm the studio director for a health system on the West Coast. I'm part of a design and innovation team that works to create the future, better, cheaper, more efficient, better patient experience healthcare system of the future. It's pretty complex and heady stuff. It's a long ways from graphic design. So this is the way I stay grounded. This is my connection back to that creative spark that got me into the design industry in the first place. So this is a Cha-Cha I gave to my team a few years ago. It's MP4, so I may have to pause at different times because I don't have the script down. But over time, I went from the analog doodles in my notebook to wanting to explore more and faster. And so I started gravitating to the scriptable abilities of Adobe Creative Suite. You may not know, but you can script Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign with JavaScript. My definition of a doodle, the intent of this is about creating flow state. The side effect is it creates something visually interesting. But it's this flow state that is the meditation, it's the stress relief, it's the reaction. And it's something you can fit into boring meetings or in between meetings. So one of the first scripting things I explored is these touche tiles, which the format is no matter how you arrange them, they'll all fit together and connect. And arranging them randomly is kind of boring, but if you find a little bit that's interesting and you hear it, then it becomes, that symmetry becomes a lot more interesting, a lot more elegant. And so I would script Illustrator to generate a lot of these, and I would filter through them to find the ones that were interesting, the ones worthy of Instagram. It's just a way of being very focused, but not using your brain. So this is a JavaScript. There used to be a product called ExtendScript to automate, but this is VS Code. That's how you do it now. And so you set the canvas size, the symbol size, you set up some variables, and then basically it's a for loop to randomly pick a symbol, place it on the page, then move one unit. And so I can generate hundreds of these things. I was really intimidated by animation until I realized you just stitch those images together, and that's animation. So I wrote a shell script to take hundreds of images with a similar file name and put them into an MP4, once forward and then backwards. So that results in taking that touche pattern from static to dynamic like this, that it reverses and goes back to the original state. And it's, you can stare at it, it's kind of psychedelic, but also lets me filter through all those 100 images to find the moments that were interesting instead of having to scroll through images. This is not a touche pattern, it's just an image, a doodle, a drawing that's inside of this triangle, which gets reflected to create the next tiling pattern. So you don't have to be really great at coding. You can do all this manually, and then with small bits of automation, using scripting, you can make interesting results. Another thing I like to explore is this thing called reaction diffusion. It's the phenomenon behind all of these natural patterns. There are two things that interact. Let's say black and then a white inhibitor. And based on how those things interact, it forms patterns. And at first I was really intimidated by the JavaScript or Python algorithms to do that. They're slow because you're rewriting the whole image every time. And then I realized, oh, Photoshop is highly optimized at handling images and it's scriptable. And there are filters that basically emulate that reaction diffusion. So you can do these steps and record it as an action and then play the action. And the result, I think, is interesting because the black and the white, positive and negative, are almost equal. So your brain doesn't know where to land. It's like bouncing around all over and noticing something different in different parts of the image. So I started with simple action, which is recording your steps, and then action with a lot of action steps, and then a JavaScript that plays the action with little bits of transformation in between each time, like scaling it up, rotating, scaling it down. And that algorithm, that process creates all of these. They have some similarity with the soft organic forms, but depending on what you start with and the scale of that reaction diffusion, it creates very different patterns. Some of these, like this, was probably a Truchet starting point. In exploring these reaction diffusion patterns, there are little pieces inside of that big thing that I think are interesting. They're like these little alien bugs. So I pull those out and collect them. I think I'm going to get some of these tattooed because I just love them. They're so cute. Like this is like a one-eyed alien squid. And then another variation of this is called asemic writing. If you just make these scribbles, it looks like writing, but it doesn't mean anything. That's asemic writing. So sometimes I develop these things that look like characters. These started as like a Space Invaders kind of generator, and then I rounded the edges. So when you put all of that together, reaction diffusion, running these actions with the transformation of scale in between, this is what it comes up with. It looks like a hugely complex organic algorithm. It's just Photoshop filters. And then if you add to the transformation rotating the color, you get more psychedelic. This was in my early exploration phase. I don't do this so much anymore because it's maybe too psychedelic. But then, when you reverse it, it's like going from chaos back to simplicity. And you use multiple layers, colors interacting with each other. And then this reversal part is the part I love, where it goes all back to the source image. And I think I have a few more of these examples. So you take a big image and you apply reduction transformation, it kind of goes back to nothing. But then when it reverses, it's like the cell growing into an organism. Again, it looks really complex. It's just Photoshop filters, little transformation, and stitching the images together. As a team, we set intentions in 2021 post-pandemic. That was the year of the butterfly, kind of regenerating after the pandemic, and that was the animation I made, kind of inspired by our theme. So if you like this sort of thing, I am on Instagram, pattern designer. There's thousands of them there. That's like a small slice. I haven't monetized, I haven't commercialized. This is just a thing I do for myself, my little daily creative ritual and meditation. Recently, I got a pen plotter, so now I'm exploring how to put these things on paper, get them off the screen. So that's kind of fun. So my thing is, don't do it like I did, but find something you're passionate about, something creative, something that gives you joy, and pursue it to the nth degree, maybe past what's healthy, and see what happens.
Do you have people that look at your work and say, oh, you should monetize that? And how do you respond to that?
Like I said, this is my outlet. There's definitely potential, but I'm not sure how I want to do that. The thing I want to do right now is get a pattern on fabric and make a shirt like this out of it, which I know I can do. Spoon flower can create the fabric, but in terms of how I want to sell them, I don't know. A designer did contact me recently and say I have a client that wants to do packaging using one of your patterns, and that is kind of interesting. But I don't know, like, putting it in stock photo or Adobe stock doesn't seem right. Getting some partnership to put it on textiles or on garments, maybe, but I don't feel like doing that much work right now. But it could be done.
This might be, I don't think it's off the topic, but with the psychedelic stuff, little backstory, my dad was a huge Deadhead. So I kind of grew up listening to the Grateful Dead and whatnot, and so I enjoy the Grateful Dead. And so, anyways, something that might be cool that you might want to check out is, so making it hard for it is the one of the Grateful Dead drummer, and he does like art by little like spin, just like have like something spin, or like even just have like amp under, and so you these cool patterns.
There's a pattern called Chitlani, I think.
Okay.
If you put a surface with a powder like sand or salt on a speaker and you play a pure tone, that vibration will make these really intricate and amazing patterns.
Yeah. And then he takes it to the next level of actually just using, say, paint and have the the sound waves make that vibration pattern that comes forth there, but also with, like, say, some spin and how different things can come about, and you get to see a whole wide variety of these patterns and whatnot. So anyways, just the reason I brought that up was just more or less it might be interesting for you to kind of explore that.
Yeah, there's a lot of explorations I have done. Like, if I was a better coder, I would totally do sound interacting with
That'd
this.
be cool.
Or getting back to something physical, screen printing or painting, or somehow putting these onto a surface in a way that's physical and hands-on.
Those vector images you use in Photoshop.
So I go back and forth between Photoshop and Illustrator, and I've got a bunch of actions in Photoshop. So I'll do an exploration. Reaction diffusion is in Photoshop because I use those filters. And because I use primarily black and white, I can select the black, convert it to a path, and then put that path in Illustrator and do links. And then I usually do the kaleidoscope kind of things in Illustrator so that it's vector and it can scale.
Yeah, so you're talking about the bag thing, and you wouldn't vector as this?
No,
That's cool.
you just use the
Ready to go.
ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's those little bits, like that action to select the black, make a path and copy it, that make this really frictionless visual exploration. I can kind of just focus on following threads and then keep my interest, and I don't have to think about it so much.
That's cool.
What game?
Yeah, so
I don't think so.
It's based off of the tiles. The whole point of the game is you'll start at the edge and use these tiles to build a path.
Oh, build a path all the way across.
No, the goal is to not to build paths in a way that knocks your opponent off.
Oh, so it's kind of like go that way, but it's
But it's based off of those tiles that you do some really interesting things with those tile sets in terms of where you can place the path you fill out.
so that's my talk. Thanks for coming.